All right, everybody, welcome back to High P at Home. I'm Cary Cusumano, and as always, I'm joined by Scott Touzinsky. Scotty, got to get off mute and say hey.
What's up, guys? Got to get off mute just in case, you know.
Today, we got a couple of alums of the club joining us, and we're going to talk a little bit of college coaching and their playing career and just see where it goes. We got from the Lindenwood men's coaching staff, Ben Duckworth. Ben, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. And from the Troy women's volleyball staff, Brian Muessenfechter. What's up, Moose?
How are we doing? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. First of all, we're in the middle of a pandemic. It's unprecedented times, especially for coaches, people that are used to just being out and about and recruiting and coaching and training and all that good stuff. I just want to see how you guys are dealing with the day-to-day. Brian, you're are you in Alabama?
Yeah, lower Alabama. Best way to describe it, it's about 2 hours north of Destin. So Destin, Panama City, Pensacola, you're anywhere from 2 hours, 45 minutes from all those beaches.
So what's keeping you busy down there? Job, family, social, whatever.
We're I think like everyone, we're doing tons of Zoom calls. I mean, I would say anywhere from 2 to 3 a day. Some last 30 minutes, some last 2.5, 3 hours. But we're trying to make the best of what's kind of going on right now. Our players went home. We actually were a little bit further extended than everyone else. Our kids went home at the beginning of March after spring break, but some of them were allowed to come back until the first week of April. So we were out of the office first week of April, and then since then we just trying to make the best of what's kind of going on. But weather's been great, so getting outside's kind of been key over this time.
Good. Ben, you're in St. Charles, close to Lindenwood, right?
Yep.
You got a lot going on at your house, I know. So how's everything been for you?
Sure. It's kind of a bittersweet thing. I mean, we were having a pretty good season and, kind of gets cut short for the men's season. So really tough kind of hand we were dealt. So you kind of try to just tell your players to, focus on the controllables. We can't control what's going on, but we can stay mentally and physically sharp and have that kind of chip on our shoulder of unfinished business from this year moving into next year. So that's been our big focus as a staff and a team, and some things we're trying to motivate our guys with as, we send home workouts and things for the summer and the rest of the spring as, season kind of was cut short. So for us, it's kind of strange because now would be kind of the downtime where we're not doing much. Finals were last week, but now it's okay. How can we be creative as a staff, be prepared for whatever scenarios present themselves in the fall while we stay on top of recruiting, even though those events aren't really happening now. So it's definitely uncharted territory, but like Brian was saying, there's plenty of creative ways to stay busy and stay dialed in on some volleyball stuff. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's unprecedented times right now, and it seems like it's just getting crazier and crazier. Obviously, you guys both came through our program. What is something that you guys, took from the High P program when you were playing and really, stressed that in your guys' I guess daily coaching lives? Let's start with you, Brian.
When I was asking on this call, I was thinking about this. High P kind of developed me as kind of my love for volleyball and everything. I joined the club when I was 14, and I didn't really know what I was getting into. But, as those years kind of ramped up, I don't know how it is anymore, but, things got a little bit more serious. As the seriousness got ramped up, got a little bit more fun, though, as well. A key component to still what we talk about with our program is that you got to play volleyball. And we talk about it, you got to play indoor, outdoor, you got to do whatever you can, but you got to get touches playing volleyball. So when we structure our practices and things like that, like we're playing. And I think that's a tenet that we kind of took from High P. There's tons of programs. We're not rewriting anything here, but High P, we played 2 hours out of our 3-hour practices. We would start off practice for about an hour, do some whatever the skill work for that day was, but then we would go, use an instance, when I was 17, we'd go play Ben's team for, an hour and a half. And that was the structure of our practices. And, you see a lot of development from there.
Yeah, you young guys beat us pretty frequently. It was not cool.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what are the let's.
Well, we stole a few of your guys my senior year. We had Murphy and JD playing up with us, so we were okay that year. But previously, you guys took us because you had all the firepower.
Well, I mean, that's one of the coolest things that I love about our gym is, the trained ugly mentality. It's just playing volleyball and you're learning in that environment. Obviously, volleyball's changed a ton. It's not the skill, beat it through your brain. There's a point in time that you guys got to figure it out on your own a little bit.
I think that's what the club did, kind of piggybacking off of Brian. Best for me was there was a balance between teaching proper skill and letting us just compete. So I think the way we structure our practices is pretty similar. Let's walk, jog, sprint throughout that 3-hour session we have. Can we warm up? Can we introduce a skill we want to get a little bit better at that day? Can we jog a little bit with that skill in a semi-live format? And then let's compete and tweak the scoring so that gets kind of exploited so we get better at it. So a lot of what Brian's saying is spot on. But, I do think High P did a great job for me as a player, teaching me those basic skills and how to develop them as the level got higher, faster, and better overall. So I know that as a coach, I've been able to kind of take that mentality and duplicate it in gyms that I've been a part of as a coach.
Let's talk a little bit about your coaching journey. We like to talk about, why people went into coaching, when they first thought about not just coaching, because I know for a lot of us, we get into coaching just because we're done playing and we love volleyball. We want to be in the gym. Talk a little bit about why you got into coaching and why you decided to make it kind of your career, and maybe throw in some people that, you worked with that influenced you. Brian, you want to kick it off?
Yeah. Again, this is attributed to High P. When we were playing, a few of us would come back in the summers and we'd get picked up on a squad, so we'd get to a month and a half before nationals and kind of get in the gym and get our feet wet and coaching and everything. But specifically, I think the time that I realized the coaching was kind of the direction I wanted to go, I think it was either my junior year or early senior year, but I want to say junior year of college when I was at Lewis. I was being asked to do things a little bit outside the box when we were doing individual sessions and things like that. I was asked to, hey, why don't you talk to them what you're seeing as a passer to my teammates and things like that. At first, I was a little bit apprehensive. I'm like, I'm not going to tell my teammates how to play, that's kind of weird. But as it kind of kept going with that and getting a little bit more comfortable with that, started realizing that hey, maybe this is something that I kind of enjoy to do. So yeah, it was definitely somewhere that junior, senior year, my career at Lewis, where I was like, okay, coaching's kind of the path that I want to go down. Now let's try to figure out what that looks like.
Ben, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were always, like Brian said, coming back in the gym to scrimmage the younger guys, getting thrown on as a second assistant with those teams for the push to nationals, which was great experience, as far as first coaching experience. For me, it's probably a little bit later than Brian, probably that had kind of a gap year between school ending and becoming a full-time college coach, to where I worked a lot at the club and coached a couple teams. I coached, I think, 2 teams that year, a girls and a boys travel team. So just trying to see if that was the right path, and then got a great opportunity to go coach the men and the women at McKendree. And that was kind of the start of it all shortly after, being in the club gym quite a bit. So for me, I think the appealing piece was more just kind of the relationship side. I think you create some really special relationships with the coaches you have growing up in high school and through the club gym, and the time you spend there. So for me, just wanting to be that resource for somebody else, since I had so many good coaches that helped me along the way, it's just kind of contagious at that point. And once you're in it, you just keep going because you want more of those relationships and you want to get better and grow it even more. So for me, it was probably that right after I finished school, where I knew that was the path for me.
Before I give it to Scotty, I just want to follow up. When I asked that question, you both coached with me at one point, so I was really hoping you were going to say I was the one that springboarded you into coaching, but it's okay. You don't have to do that.
I'm not going to name names, but I did say there were many coaches, such as yourself.
Cary's always trying to one-up everybody on this show, I tell you, man. I love it, though. I'm going to switch gears here. We had, obviously, Jeff Cheek and Zach Young on last week, kind of by design, going through their high school season. Jeff getting canceled, and obviously Zach getting ready for it. We're going to get now, obviously, amp it up a notch here with you guys, coaching collegially. Ben, we'll start with you here. You guys were on a great run. We talked through there when you guys were ready to go out to Long Beach and play them, and
Sure.
I was like, man, you guys got a great opportunity this year. And obviously, I saw your guys' team last year, which you guys were top notch. How bummed were you, obviously, for the seniors, and just where do you think it was going to end at the end of the year?
Wow, that's kind of a tough twofold question. I think, first of all, when the pandemic hits, the season ends, you kind of deal with that in your own way as an individual, at least on the men's side. And the first thing you think of is, man, what a bummer for the seniors. And for our seniors specifically, those 4 guys, this was our 3rd year as a staff. Those guys bought in to the culture change and what we wanted to do as a program immediately. Those guys were the reason we had the season we had up until it ended. And all 4 of those guys, the work they did on and off the court, I could talk about it all day, so I'll stop. But those 4 guys have really good career opportunities already lined up. So none of them are going to return. So I think, you're just saddened for those guys that they got a third of their season cut short, and they're probably never going to play high-level volleyball again. They're going to play in leagues and stuff and stay involved with the sport, maybe coach a club team or help out here and there. But, they're moving on to life. And it's awesome for them that they had those jobs and everything lined up. But it's still sad that, those guys didn't get to have their day in the sun. So that's kind of the first thing I think that sucks about this whole pandemic thing is just the opportunity that was taken away from the seniors. And then just kind of talking about our team and our program in general. We finished the year 11-8. We lost a couple out west. I know I talked to Scotty before we went out west, and great experience for our guys. We went through the first half of conference play pretty strong, and when the season ended, we were sitting second in the conference. Whether that's where we would have ended up or not, who knows? But we put together a good first half of the resume, right? And for us, there's definitely a little bit of a sense of unfinished business. And I hope that's a good motivator for our guys coming back in the fall, whatever the fall is going to look like. But through my 3 years at Lindenwood, this was definitely a fun ride, and we kind of turned the corner and started making some noise. So I'm excited to hopefully continue that momentum into the fall and next season. And just kind of see where it goes, but ready to get back to work whenever they allow us to.
I know you and Joe are, man. You guys are grinders. I love it. Brian, obviously, totally switching gears here with you guys. You guys are ramping up right now, and obviously there's probably a lot of uncertainties in your guys' programs. I've heard so many things come out with the NCAA, and I don't even want to bring up any of them. But obviously you guys are doing a ton of Zooms right now with your team. What is it looking like? July timeframe, if anything, who knows?
And it's one of those things, like, I could comment on it right now, but tomorrow I could find something out differently. But what they're kind of doing conference by conference right now is it's who can do what and when. So, like, they're saying, hey, these teams in this conference might be able to pull off this date. These teams a different date. So without going into too much detail, I can talk about our school individually. Like, they're trying to shoot for a July 1 date to try and get back to campus. Whether that's going to work or not, we'll see. But that's what they're shooting for. We don't really know what we're looking at as far as scheduling and things go. We know what's gotten taken away from us. We're doing only half of our conference now because they're going to take away all flights for most schools across the country. And so that's kind of the direction they're going with those things. But Yeah. Back to like kind of where Ben was going, the bummer with the whole spring from the women's perspective, I know it's way harsher on the guys. Like you're losing those senior years. You guys were making runs and things like that. A little background on our program was, we were starting all sophomores, one junior, and some freshmen. Like we didn't have a single senior starting. We were getting really pumped, like, all right, this was going to be the spring because, the freshman year, spring last year, we saw a lot of growth. Like, all right, this is going to be the maturing year. And that kind of got cut out from us real quick. So, trying to adapt to that situation has been the thing that we're trying to figure out the most because you don't get those touches. It's impossible to replace that. And we will be a little bit more veteran next year, but, how veteran do you get from just growing without the touches? So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's a tough, and I never even thought of it from the women's side of all those touches you're getting in the spring. That's a whole new ball game.
Let's both of you guys have kind of alluded to it, but talk a little bit about gym culture. Ben and Joe at Lindenwood. For those of you who don't know, I spent 8 years at Lindenwood, and two coaching staffs removed from Ben and Joe, but there was a culture change that kind of needed to happen. Not so much that the culture was so bad, but trying to make that jump to the next level in the MIVA.
Sure.
Talk about some of you mentioned the guys buying into the culture. What are some of the things you really had to get them to buy into?
I think the biggest thing was just dedicating and prioritizing volleyball appropriately. I think some of those guys previous to us arriving had priorities in some different orders, to put it plainly. Obviously academics and family are inevitably the top two, and those will never change and should never change. But as a college athlete, whatever sport you're playing should be number three. And for some of our guys, that wasn't the case. So, a lot of conversations, a lot of presentations and meetings to try and just be like, hey guys, if you want to be successful at this level, here's some things that you need to do and that you can control. There's always things we can't control, and we try to not really focus on those as a coaching staff. So I think the biggest culture thing for us was just how bad do you want it and what are you willing to sacrifice to get it? And our current seniors who just graduated last week were the first four guys to be like, I'll do whatever it takes, coach. So and then that became contagious as we brought in recruiting classes and we got through those first two seasons, and the seniors that graduated those first two seasons made some changes for sure that were beneficial and key. But having 3 years with this last group, I think it's just a little more magnified. Those guys embodied what we were trying to do and did a really good job showing the younger guys what it meant to be a Lindenwood men's volleyball player. And really excited for the future and where we're going now that, we kind of have a identity and a grit to us that I think puts us on a close to equal playing field with everybody in the country. So where we go next and how the next year goes will be real interesting and fun to be a part of.
Well, I'm glad and pretty proud to have both of you guys have players that have come through the High P program in your gyms. When we move over to Brian with Troy, you guys relatively new coaching staff, mid-major program, trying to make that next jump, into the, being an NCAA tournament member year in, year out. What are some of the things, some of the gym culture items that you guys have really been focusing on to get to that next level?
On our wall outside the office and locker room, it says best teammate, best effort. It's a simple saying. We have a few things that we other like terms that we use, but like Ben kind of hit the nail on the head at the beginning. It's family, academics, volleyball. Like, how are you prioritizing some of your things, and where are you going with that? But just without repeating everything that he said, it's like we try to instill in our players is like, what is your why? Now everyone's kind of heard that statement if you've done some reading and things like that. Like, why are you playing volleyball? Why are you on this team? Why are you at this school? And things like that. And our saying, when we break down the huddle, in games, practices, everything, it's family. Like the girls really, really embrace that culture. They look out for each other. They love each other. They talk to their friends in other programs about, man, this is special, because you hear some things going on in other programs. We saw it in our own program when we got here at first. It's just we're creating an identity that hopefully is a self-sustaining identity. You know, something that you can build on and kind of push to the future. And kind of like what you were saying, Cary, is like, you know, we're trying to make that next jump. And that next jump is really difficult at the mid-major level. Our conference is really close. Last year, we were almost a two-bid conference. We were one spot out of it. We went to the NIBC tournament. We had some really good wins. But, you know, we broke almost every record in school history last year. And but making that next jump, I mean, you got to be elite to make that jump. So it takes a lot of work from the coaches, from the players, from the support staff, everyone involved. So if you don't get the complete buy-in, you know, maybe you'll get lucky, but it's only going to be a one-time thing if it happens.
Yeah, definitely, man. That jump is tough, and we talked about all the time at Long Beach State. And I'm a huge why guy. I love hearing that, Brian, because I ask why back to our guys all the time, and I can't stand the answer when it's I don't know. It just like drives me insane, because if you're saying I don't know, you haven't learned anything in your volleyball career yet. You got to figure it out. We're going to go. We asked this question. We had David Hunt on the show last night to our coaches, and we asked this question. It was pretty cool hearing his answers. I'm super excited to hear yours. Process versus results. Obviously, as a coach, I don't know if there's one coach out there that I've found, Cary and I talked about this, is that are result driven. You know, obviously the process and the growth mindset is massive for elite level athletes. But what do you guys talk about in your gym, Brian, on process versus results?
You know, I mean, process is everything. Like that's going to get you there. Obviously there is a part of it that is result oriented. You know, like you go on to game day, you see what happens, and then you go back and rewrite the script. All right, what do I got to tweak and whatever that is. But if you buy into the process, it's going to happen. Whether it happens in year one or it happens in year 4, or maybe it'll happen after your college career is over, whether if you continue to keep playing. But it's one of those things. Man, Mike Krzyzewski said something. I can't remember the 2 players that he was talking about, but one was the number 1 overall recruit in the country. The other guy was like 12. Number 1 guy didn't play his freshman year. 12 guy was freshman of the year or whatever, and then the number 1 guy was the best player by his junior year. You know, you can't compare yourself to kind of what's going on around you. You got to just be the next best you the next day, you know. So if you stick to the process, you have a good plan, you make adjustments when needed, like you'll get the results that you want. And if you don't get the results in the win column or, you know, the numbers or whatever you're looking at, like, you know, you put it out there. So you're going to have a good feeling.
Yeah, it's cool you say that, because I was thinking the same thing last night when Dave was talking. It's like, and I'm a big process guy, and I was thinking to myself, yeah, but at some time you got to have the result. I mean, you know, that's why you're working on the process so much. In a game, I mean, hey, the process is gone now. It's got to be a result. That's how we win and lose matches, you know. Ben,
can I jump in there real quick?
Of course.
Yeah, that was one of our big spring talking points that got cut short this year. We were talking about how do we turn it on from practice mentality to game mentality. So we were structuring our practices with pretty much the same structure that we had, but it was more like hey, all right, it's game time. Not too much feedback's coming in now. You let it loose. Like, hey, we might have been working on tooling the block, or we might have been working on some cross body swing, something like that. But like, hey, window's open. Go score some points. You know, go try and do what you can do, and then we'll get the feedback from that, and we'll tweak that. You know, but we were trying to make that jump so that they could feel like what the competitive nature was, because that's where the results are coming. But if you treat the game like the practice, you're kind of fooling yourself a little bit. You know, you want to make your practice harder than the game, but you know that's not always the case.
Yep, Ben.
Yeah, I think process first result. It's for us. The big message has always been, you guys focus on the result. Us as a staff, we're going to focus on the process. And as an athlete, you got to have a little bit of both. Like Brian was saying, there's always a result, even though you're focused on the process. But our practice plans are kind of geared towards process with that kind of walk, jog, sprint mentality. And then the two big key phrases we use in our gym that I think can work for every level is you need to have, as an athlete walking into practice, you need to be prepared to have a growth mentality and a competition mentality. And usually the first half of our practice is that growth mentality. And then as soon as we go live, it's okay, guys, it's competition mode. And they know to kind of flip that switch. So like Brian's saying, when you go into a game, it's definitely a different feel than practice. So any way that we can replicate that game feeling in practice, so when the lights do come on and there's people in the stands, we're prepped. That's kind of our goal with those two mindsets and kind of communicating those two mindsets on a daily basis in the training gym.
Yeah, well, Ben, being with, Coach Nick McRae, associate head coach at Long Beach State. And on our gym at Long Beach, it was training mode and competition mode or game mode.
Yep.
And you got to flip the mindset real fast. One of my favorite stories ever about being with Alan is I got blown up in practice one day from him because we had flipped from training mode to game mode. And in game mode, we don't give feedback. It's just if the score is flipping, you let it go, And he blew up on me real bad. And I learned real fast, like, okay, we're in game mode right now. Here we go.
And that's another aspect of competition mode in our gym is there's no excuse for no effort. It's competition mode. Like you're all the way through the end of your season. I don't think you're really doing what you need to be doing.
For sure.
I'd like to tie that in a little bit to recruiting. I thought something interesting David Hunt said last night to tie that in. Somebody was asked him about how do you build trust with your players? And he said, well, I've been recruiting these guys since they were 15, 16 years old. I know I've already built a relationship with them by the time they've gotten into my gym. I think it's one of the interesting things I'm taking from that is, I guess every coach does have kind of they have traits that they're looking for, whether it's physical or mental or emotional. Do you guys have when you're having recruiting meetings amongst staff? Are there things that you talk about, traits that are specific to kids that you're looking for? Brian, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, I'll keep mine short without going into like, hey, big arm and stuff like that. We were actually just talking to our incoming class, and our thing is we recruit kids with chips on their shoulder. We've had multiple kids that were committed to a Power 5 school that got dropped, and then multiple kids that were just passed over on their own teams. That, like, one kid, for an example, on one of our incoming kids, she had North Carolina, Purdue. I just keep naming them, and she was their captain. She was a 17s playing on an 18s team, and she might have been their best all-around player. And it was just like, all right, we're going to look at that kid. She's a little undersized and stuff like that. But it's just one example. All of our incoming kids share that same thing. But, yeah, it's that chip on the shoulder that we kind of look for.
Ben, you actually already used that term when you talk about your team. Is it similar for you?
Yeah, I think kind of what Brian's saying, and it's a little bit comparable. I think our program with theirs being a mid-major trying to make that jump, as you guys alluded to earlier, we're not UCLA, we're not Long Beach State, but we can go compete with those guys. So we're going to take the athletic guy who's maybe a little bit more raw than the players going to those types of schools. But it's, hey, if you come in and work hard, you're going to get an opportunity to show that coach and that program that they should have looked at you. So chip on your shoulder is a very common phrase for me. I was kind of that player coming out the high P. I didn't get a ton of looks, but I got a couple opportunities and I had a chip on my shoulder. So I can relate to that as an individual. So those are kind of the players I like to recruit. I think another word that is pretty important for me on the recruiting side is grit. If you're willing to run through a wall for a ball, yeah, come play in our gym. You'll find a home, and it'll be a great experience for you because we pride ourselves on that kind of stuff. So we want to be the gritty team, maybe the team that shows you, hey, we can beat you even though you don't know much about us. And that's a lot of fun to be a part of as well.
For sure. I always tell everybody I have a favorite player for sure that I coach every single team that I coach. It's always the kid who works the hardest and talks the most. And anytime a kid's going to freaking dive through a wall, they're going to be on my team. They're going to be starting every time. I mean,
That's right.
I love these kids, man. It's unbelievable. Obviously, incoming freshman here, and Ben, I'm going to start with you because I know you guys got one of our very own coming there, a couple of our very own coming.
Got a few, yeah.
And, which is sweet, you know. And obviously, I got to see them this past season for the first time in our gym, and it was super fun to work with them. But you know, I know the position that you guys were working on before a little bit. You know, Weary was the setter position. You had some new guy coming in. I think Australia.
Sure.
Correct? Was it Australia or New Zealand?
Yeah, we had 3 guys competing for that spot. There's a little bit of a revolving door early in the year, and then our sophomore from Maryland ended up winning the job and doing a really good job. Kind of the second half of the season we did have. So
yeah, no, it's sweet, and obviously, you know, Connor Sheehan's going to come in this next year, and got a lot of love for Connor. Obviously.
Big chip on his shoulder, which we like.
That's exactly why I went to this question, because this kid's got a chip on his shoulder, dude, like of any kid. You know, what do you see from Connor and what are you excited about?
I'm excited for Connor's ability to run the offense right away. I don't think it's going to take him long to learn our system and connect with our point scorers as a setter and the quarterback. The question for Connor is, you know, physically, can he overcome being a little bit of a smaller guy at the next level? So really excited to see what he brings to the table in the fall, how that meshes in our gym, having a guy that's run a really sophisticated offense in club. Because I think the 2 guys we had that really got some opportunities at the setter position this year haven't ran that sophisticated of offenses before this year. So, you know, Connor's not going to have a lot of catch up with those guys. So it's going to be a really nice piece, I think, to just add to that position for us. And, you know, we're big believers in seniority doesn't matter. The best man wins. So, yeah, I'm just excited to see how it goes. I think adding you know, for us, it'll be a 4th setter in the gym for this year, but a super quality guy and a guy that, you know, wears his emotions on his sleeve and has that chip and some grit, and that's kind of what we want. So I think the upperclassmen are going to enjoy playing with him pretty quickly.
Yeah, he gets fired up for sure. I've been talking a lot over these last couple months before, you know, they went to high school is of him trying to become more of a leader, you know, like, hey,
sure.
you're in the quarterback, so-called quarterback position on your volleyball team. Just got to step it up. This is something that hopefully is going to translate over to you guys next year.
And there's naturally going to be some growing pains with that and getting used to new guys around them. But hopefully we get back on campus in the fall with minimal restrictions due to the pandemic, and we can work through all that before season hits.
Heck yeah. Brian, I don't think you have any high peak girls coming in, or do you just got one? There's one, correct?
No, we had Julia Brooks came in last year.
Last year.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, obviously, with your freshman class coming in here, what are you looking at? Anybody that might be able to make an impact? I don't like to ever name names except for the Connor one, but
yeah, well, we have a couple kids that can make an impact, in my opinion. And you know, we vocalize these things with our recruits, but we never promise playing time to anyone. You know, and what I'm most excited about this class coming in. You know, we have 2 6 rotation outsides coming in. We have our first next setter coming in. Like, we haven't had that. Our last setter has kind of been our DS, and she just sets in practice. So she's not getting the specific training. So this is the first time that we get to train. And then we got another middle coming in. So this will be the first time. Our numbers are lower than the men's gym. We carry 16 right now. We want to play with like 16 to 18 at any given time. But this will be the first time that we truly think that we can get after it in the way that we want to get after it in the gym. You know, during season before, it was always protecting this kid, protecting that kid. Well, now we can but then the practice would get scaled back when we did that. Now I think we can do what's appropriate at the right time and continue to keep the high competition level and getting good reps, no matter who's out there in practice, kind of getting after it.
Excited for you this fall then, because we had kind of that this spring where top to bottom we felt like the entire gym belonged and could fulfill any role. So it was a really fun year. So I hope you guys get the same this fall.
So now that we've talked all this serious coaching stuff, want to maybe switch gears a little bit to your guys' playing careers, because you both had really good playing careers, club, high school, collegiately. I want to go back to what we referenced briefly, the competitive nature of the high P gym when you guys were there at the same time. But I want to hear about, I'm sure it got kind of interesting at times. I want to know who was the button pusher.
Dave Bosch. 100%.
Mike Klipsch.
Our team, Dave Bosch, we went when he went, and we went through walls when he went through walls. He was the guy for us, for our group.
Yeah, Mike Klipsch on our team, getting red cards in games on match points. Have you guys seen the infamous T-shirt? Because this is before you were with us, Cary. Have you seen the T-shirt for the Godfather for Meeber?
Oh, yeah.
That has the 10 sayings on the back. There's one that has some expletives pushed out because Meeber went off on Mike Klipsch, about as bad as I've seen someone go off on. So it was a lot of fun. But, yeah, no, Klipsch got everyone going, and, yeah, it was fun.
Who was the guy – let's go back and talk about it. I think it's kind of an obvious answer maybe, but who was the guy when you were playing, like, we got to stop him, he's killing us, we have to get in front of him?
Like teams we played against, or the guy on our team?
When you guys were playing against each other.
When we were playing against each other, I think it kind of depends on the year, because I know when, Brian being a year younger than me, before my senior year, we always had to know where Brian was, and we always had to know where Murphy Troy was. And then my senior year, we moved Murphy up, so we kind of had him on our side, which was nice. But, yeah, I'd say those were the top two guys we had to look out for playing the younger squad throughout the high P days.
Yeah, and they were a little bit more balanced when they were 18s. We were when they took our big guys, we were the small team our 17s year, so we were looking out for everyone. We got Ben on the right, Murph on the left. Even Plisky, Plisky, Sprague, they're balling out back then. But yeah, in the middles, Heine and stuff. There was a lot coming at you, but.
Yeah, that's. I love talking about the good old days. Being back here, I get to talk about it a little bit more, obviously, because out in California, I don't know what you're talking about. But I love asking this question. I grew up, obviously, watching Scott Meeber in the gym when he was playing, and he was by far the best volleyball player to ever come out of St. Louis, Missouri. I love hearing, and I heard this from Murph, which was super cool. He calls him the Godfather, and I had never even heard of that before I even got back here, that Scott's the Godfather. And I'm like, dude, that's like the perfect label for him. Give me, what Scott meant to you guys as volleyball players, and just what you learned from him, because, man, he's got so much knowledge up there. It's unbelievable. Start with you, Ben.
Wow, that's a big question. But for me, what Scott meant was he was around me a little bit my junior year, but he was obviously my head coach my senior year. For me, and during that time, we're talking, 12, 13 years ago, recruiting was pretty late for the boys' side then. So, you went into senior year not knowing where you were going almost all the time. So for me, going into senior year, uncommitted, he was kind of that guy that was in my face all the time. Brian mentioned Klipsch being the guy that Scott got on. I think I was that guy on our team for our age group. I'm sure I deserved it most of the time, but, we don't need to dive into that. At any rate, he was an in your face, I'm going to push you and I'm going to make you your best kind of coach. And he wasn't shy about it. And I think that had a lot to do with why I chose to go play for Arnie Ball at Fort Wayne. I think they were similar coaches at that time where they weren't afraid to get in your face and challenge you on a daily basis. And I was used to that from Scott because I was the guy he pushed a lot. Me and Murphy were kind of those two guys that year. So going into college, I think that's why I chose that school, but that also prepared and made me mentally tough enough to handle whatever was coming at me at the next level. So you talk about, your club prepares you for the next level or for life, right? And Scott did that for me. And there are a lot of obstacles between graduating high school and where I'm at now. And I think Scott's a big part of why I've been able to get through whatever was thrown at me, So I don't think you can speak enough about what he's meant to at least the boys volleyball players specifically that have come through the program.
No questions asked, man. He started off with me when I was 16 years old, and he was my 16th head coach, and we won JOs that year and just catapulted the next 3 years. It was amazing before he started up high performance. Brian, what you got?
Yeah, I mean, piggybacking off of what Ben said, I mean, I had that gamer mentality, I think is what Scott would call me back in the day. He's like, only shows up on big games, doesn't work hard. And the other, I never thought that, but I think Scott, I only had him my 18th year, but he specifically there was one practice. So we had Murph out with he had a stress fracture. JD went down with an Achilles or an ACL. I can't remember what it was. We had 13 guys on the roster. We only had 8 that could practice. And I had busted my ankle the week before, and he pushed the next week. Like, I'm just kind of, going through it. I'm kind of, I'm not afraid to say this. I was in tears, and he's just pushing me because we had to qualify. We hadn't qualified yet. We only signed up for 2. And we didn't qualify in the first one. And so we were at the Chicago one at the time was the last one. And I'm like, all right, I just kind of went. We end up winning that qualifier. I'm just sitting there looking back, and I'm just like, man, I don't know if I would have been able to play the way I did if I wouldn't have been preparing the way that I did. But, I went to Lewis, and I could say this truthfully, Scott was in the stands. He was the first guy I would go to after the game was over. He came to every match that he could, every time there was a Palos tournament and everything. So he's one of those guys. I mean, he's looking out for his players after they were gone, always keeping tabs and everything. So it means a lot. And, he's the godfather.
For sure. I know the funniest thing that I told Murph this the other day, too, is I walked into the Vianney gym. I was like, I don't know, about 7 years old maybe or something like that. Maybe not even that, 5. And I see him in the weight room, through the small little window, diagonal into the weight room. And we're about to start the match in 25 minutes, and he is thundering squats on the squat rack. And I'm looking at my dad. I was like, what the heck? They're supposed to be playing a game right now. It must have been right before they started attacking, and he was just thundering. I don't know how much weight was on there. I said, man, I'm skinny. I can never do that. So, oh boy.
I want to continue on. I think I want to be specific with Brian, but kind of just talk about we'll move on to some college stuff, but talk about some memories from playing time with High P. Brian, I want to hear the story, the best story from, other than winning, from your 18th year, the best story from that tournament.
That tournament was a whirl. And I think there's one quote that I'm going to finish this with, but the whole time we were sitting there watching Outriggers. So we're on court 1, Outriggers on court 2, and we can't see them play. Well, not court 2, I guess that would have been. They were behind us, all right? So we can't see them playing the same schedule the whole time, and they're just working everybody. And we kept trying to jump over their court to see them because at the time they had Riley McKibben, Triborn, Eric Shoji, Brad Lawson. I mean, just a phenomenal roster. Jordan Inafutu. So we were just like, all right, we want to play that team. So semifinals comes along, and we just get done, and we wanted to go over and watch them play. Scott goes, no, we're getting out of the gym. We're going to the hallway. He goes, I don't care who's playing that match. You're going to beat them. We just were like, okay. And then we just went outside, laid down, just kind of hung out as a group, and then just kind of walked into the match. There's this sense of confidence that I don't know if it had to be done, but because we came out slow in that match too. We lost set 1 in that finals, but it was just one of those things that that quote will always resonate with me because I still want to know how they lost. I don't know how that team lost, but yeah.
Yeah, because you didn't play them in the finals, right?
No, we played Pacific Palisades.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ben, what's your favorite memory from playing, at a tournament or in a match in the club?
Probably my junior year, my 17th year. So I was a little bit of a late bloomer with volleyball. I didn't play for High P until my sophomore year, my 16th year. I was really raw. I was really bad. I had no idea what I was doing, but I made the second team. I had never played any position besides middle blocker. And then, boom, they want to throw me on the left. So I had to figure out how to pass. So it was an interesting year, my sophomore year. But my junior year, we had another volleyball legend in the area, Steve Gedeker, as our head coach. So a little shout out to Gedeker Superstores and Steve. But he was our coach 17th year, and I had no idea what the volleyball world was like. So we go into that tournament. We end up, again, playing outrigger, like Brian mentioned, and some of those guys were playing up my 17th year. So you had, Spencer McLaughlin, both Soji brothers, Lawson, McKibben, all those guys on that team. And we end up matching up with them in the quarterfinals. And I'll never forget it. I got set a ball overhead. I was playing opposite that year instead of outside. And it was 24-23 us in the second set to force the third. And I went up one on half a block. Jeff Schmitz put up a beautiful ball, faked everybody out. I got a little cocky with it and bounced it just out of bounds, and we ended up losing in 2. So that play has stuck with me for 13 years. So I think it'll continue to stick with me. But kind of the coolest memory was I had no idea going into that season what I was capable of or what our team was capable of. We had a lot of guys that had played for the club for 4 years, 5 years, and I was kind of second-year guy, new to the group, and I ended up getting all tournament at nationals that year. So that was one of the humbling memories. That play I'll never forget because I won it back, but also, kind of being picked by my coaching staff and the committee and being recognized as, Brian was his senior year as well. But that was kind of when volleyball, the whole world of it kind of opened up to me, and I kind of saw the possibilities. So I'll never forget that.
I love it, man. Trust me, I know from experience, it's going to keep on haunting you for a lot longer, Ben.
Oh, I'm sure. You got some bigger ones in the bag than I do.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't matter what you do in the game of volleyball. For some reason, it keeps on haunting. Well, thanks, dude. I'm out of questions. Cary, you keep on asking, dude. I've got the ones in that I want. I was super fired up. But I love hearing the Gedeker Superstore. Shout out. Steve was on. We had Karch on here 2 days ago, and he was doing a Zoom for the whole entire club. I saw Steve on there, and he looked like he was a kid in a candy store. And so,
he still loves it. He still loves it. Anytime I see him, he talks about that stuff. So
the passion this guy has still, and I got the the pleasure of working with him this year with his, I believe it was a 15s team that he was coaching this year, Cary. And my Lord have mercy, the amount of emails that he would write me that were pages upon pages, and I'm going to go and work. It was unbelievable to see just the passion that he has still, and it's super, super exciting for me to be able to work with him now, because obviously I played with his son and I've known him forever, and it's super cool.
Anytime I see him now, I'm like, you're still a full-time volleyball coach and a part-time entrepreneur, right? So that's, if he had it his way, he'd just do volleyball all day long, which is cool.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No questions asked. Well, thanks guys again for coming today. Cary, you keep on rattling them off, dude.
Yeah, I want to kind of just get a couple memories from college. I like, hearing about, you guys got to play in some big arenas and some big moments. Brian, in your time at Lewis, what was kind of the coolest place you played, where you actually felt like, hey, I need to soak this in?
I don't know if there's any individual one match, because, we did get to play a lot of really, really fun matches. We went out to the Pyramid, got our first win in Lewis history over Long Beach out there. I think that was right at the time. I don't know if that was home and away or if it was just there. I got to play Murph my freshman year. We beat them. There was a couple individual matches where the thing that I held over everyone's head after we got done playing now my team didn't do as good as those other teams, but I was like, hey, my team's the only team that none of you guys beat. So I was like, I beat all my teammates. But no,
Yeah, once you got there, we never beat you guys. So there you go.
Yeah, but we still have the finals appearance or anything like that. So yeah, no, there's no individual one match. Actually, I will say this: UCLA at home, my sophomore year, place was sold out, standing room only. People were in the weight room. It was wild. It went 5. It was one of those things that it was really fun to be a part of. It was supposed to be a homecoming match. I forgot the outside's name. He was a senior at the time at UCLA from Chicago. So it was supposed to be a homecoming match, and it was a big win at home. Kind of sparked that year. We were doing really well until the conference tournament. But, yep.
Ben?
Probably the obvious highlight for me was just freshman year going to the national championship match. I think the coolest part for us at Fort Wayne was, first time we had ever been in the finals. We'd made it to the Final Four before. But the fact that Ohio State was hosting that year and it was at St. John's Arena, which was only a 2.5-hour drive from our campus, was huge. So, the athletics department shuttled 2 buses of students down, and it was basically a home game for us in the semis against Pepperdine, who had 2 losses on the year. They were like 30-2. Winder and Rooney were there, and I mean they were stupid good. And somehow I'll never forget this moment. Coach Ball, we were down 0-4 in the first set. Coach Ball calls a timeout. Then we're down 7-2. He calls a second timeout. 9 points into the match. He's out of timeouts for the first set. Well, he knew what he was doing because we came back and we, after losing the first set, we won sets 2, 3, and 4 to advance to the finals. So being just a part of that, even as a freshman on the bench, just being able to experience that, I'll never forget that. But then I think the second big memory for me is that following year, we opened up the season with BYU at home back-to-back nights. And going into that year, BYU was preseason number 1 and we were preseason number 4. And our gym seats about 2,500, and there was at least 3,000 people there. And, we lost in 4 both nights, but that place was rocking. And that memory and that feeling on your home court, like Brian alluded to with UCLA his sophomore year, you just don't forget those kind of moments. They just stick with you. And it's a great memory that I'll always kind of cherish.
Well, I can tell you, I don't have any good memories coaching in either of the gyms you guys played in. So, but I really appreciate you guys joining us. It was awesome just to see you guys and catch up. Hopefully we can do it in person real soon. But in the meantime, stay safe and good luck with everything.
I'll tell you what, man, if we could get a Zoom meeting with Arnie Ball on here, that would be the most incredible thing I think I've ever had. I had the luxury of doing a coach's clinic with him one time up in Fort Wayne. Oh boy.
He's still doing some content here and there. So you want him on, I bet if you reach out, he'd be chomping at the bit. He still misses it, and he still connects with me every once in a while. So
yeah, that's the next goal. Loy and Arnie on the Zoom here, Cary. We're going for it.
Love
man.
it. Love it.
Yeah, they'd be all in.
Guys. That was awesome.
Thanks.
I just want to finish up real quick. I was talking to our head coach. I was like, hey, man, I'm loving what you guys are doing. You guys putting out a lot of content. It's tough times right now. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep getting creative. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I second that. The stuff you guys are doing, it's great. I think USA Volleyball is trying to do some stuff, and you guys are right behind them, and that's huge for, just continuing to grow it and give content, especially in the St. Louis area, but hopefully everywhere. Good stuff.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, guys. All right, well, let's get into it. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks for having us on. You guys take care. Stay safe.
You too.
See you guys.